Hi, I'm TJ Walker, and I'm not here in the studio today. I'm actually on vacation, but I still wanted to share with you some insights. So, my team and I have put together a best of compilation for today, and I hope you enjoy it. Let's dive right in. So, how can you become a better communicator right away? Here's a quick win. Cheat. That's right. If you're nervous about going into a presentation, a talk, a briefing, a speech, you're not quite sure what you're going to say, do what I do. I have a cheat sheet. Everything I'm going to say for the next hour is all right here. Now, the beauty of this is it's a single sheet of paper. If I'm speaking on camera, I can just put it in front of my laptop, in front of my computer. No one sees it. If I'm speaking to a larger audience and perhaps walking around, or even if I'm in a big room in front of a large audience, I can have that one sheet of paper on a table. I can have it on top of a laptop. I can have it scattered out, several copies around the room. No one will see me picking it up. The beauty of it is it's only on one sheet of paper. So that's a quick one you can do right away that will make you so much less nervous because you're not going to have to remember what to say. Chances are your memory isn't any better than mine, and mine's no good. That's why I use a very, very simple cheat sheet. Now, let's go right into a second quick win. The number one way to be confident when you're starting any presentation is to do what I just did. Start with a quick win. Give something of value to your audience, something where they can say, that was useful. That was interesting. I didn't know that. I can use that. Maybe I should listen to this person a little more. That's so much better than the traditional way of starting a speech, where someone kind of walks out, good morning, I'm happy to be here today. Let me tell you about how important I am. Let me tell you about all the wonderful things I can tell you about what I've accomplished. Boring. Rule number one when it comes to communication, nobody really cares about you. People care about themselves. So the faster you can hop right in to telling people something interesting for them, the better. Hi, I'm TJ Walker, and what we're going to do in the next hour or so is go through an actual training to make you a better communicator. We'll work on communication skills together so that you can be better one-on-one, speaking to small groups, business meetings, sitting down on a conference table, but also standing, giving a briefing, a speech, and a talk. And we'll even talk about how you can speak more effectively to the media or in front of a camera. These are skills you're going to learn. I'm TJ Walker. I've been training people just like you all over the globe for about 30 years. I've trained presidents of countries, prime ministers, Nobel Peace Prize winners, professional athletes, and a lot of folks just like you. So here's what we're going to do today, and it's a little bit different. Now, this is a training seminar. It's a live training seminar for me when I'm doing it, but I'm not going to lie to you. One of my concerns in the whole marketing world is there's so much nonsense these days about come to my free training webinar, come to my free live training session, and it's just marketing spin. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. My marketing team's not that happy with me. They said, TJ, if you're going to generate leads and get more people into your sales funnel, you can't actually teach them anything. You have to whet their appetite. You have to sort of poke their pain. You have to do this value stacking where you say, and you get $10 billion worth of stuff today if you act right now in the next 5 minutes for $9.95. Frankly, it's a lot of cheesy stuff I'm not that comfortable with. So I'm going to make a deal with you. I'm going to be transparent on what I'm doing here. And I hope that we really have a fair exchange of value. I'm going to actually give you the same training that I give to paying clients. Really walk you through step by step, not just tease you, tantalize you, throw a shroud over things, and then at the last minute say, oh, but what you really need is behind this curtain, and you can't get it unless you spend $10,000 with me. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to earnestly give you what I feel is great information to help you become a better communicator. And then every 10, 15 minutes or so, I'm going to give you some options for finding out more if you want to go to the advanced level. But my goal here is that you actually improve. You go from wherever you are several steps up in terms of your skill as a communicator. And then if you want to get to an advanced level, or if you want to advance even faster, then you can check out opportunities to work with me and my team. So what are we really going to focus on today? I'm going to help you with the things that you've already told me you're concerned about. Your body language when you're speaking. That's why you can see me from here up, and it's not just a tight little shot. I want to actually show you the things that you can do to look more comfortable and confident, and the things that you shouldn't do so that you don't look nervous and uncomfortable. I'm going to give you tips on how to use your voice in a more powerful way, because so many students I work with and clients around the world are insecure and feel like their voice is no good and it's hurting them. We'll focus on that. I'm going to really go through the most common mistakes most people make as speakers. And together we'll come up with specific tips, tricks, and tactics so that you can avoid those mistakes. That's really the goal. Now, the ultimate goal is to help you become a better communicator. What is communication? It's when you have an idea in your head, it comes out of you in some way so that another person or group of people can hear you, understand you, find it interesting and relevant to them, and remember your message so that they can take an action. Whether it is buy a product from you, sign a contract, hire you if you're on a job interview, endorse you, vote for you. Anytime we speak, it's typically because we want people to take a specific action. So that is the underlying assumption of everything we're doing here today, is to really help you accomplish something. Before you worry about the perfect message and the perfect outline and these brilliant ideas, for a lot of folks, it's, oh my gosh, what do I do when I have to stand up in front of people or even sit in a room with my boss and 5 other people? What do I do with my hands? How do I keep from looking stupid? What if I rock awkwardly or fidget? All of these are completely legitimate concerns, because ultimately we want to communicate a message, but it's never about style versus substance. You always have to have both. I can have the best message in the world, the best tips in the world on public speaking, speech writing, communication. But if I stand here like this for the next hour, giving you fantastic ideas, brilliant ideas, wonderful tactics, the only thing you're going to take away is, boy, oh boy, TJ sure seems nervous and like he has to go to the bathroom. Why? Because you associate someone rocking back and forth with nervous. You associate someone looking down nervous, and someone holding their hands down here as either nervous or uncomfortable or having to go to the bathroom. So that is the message I would be sending. It's not that your visual message is always more important than what you're saying. It's that you need both. Think of it this way. If you had to hire someone to be your assistant and they have the best resume in the world, but they send you a cover letter filled with typos, spelling errors, mistakes, smudged paper, you probably wouldn't hire them, right? On the other hand, if someone had a beautiful cover letter, beautiful punctuation, beautiful spelling, but you looked at their resume, they never worked a day in their life, and there's nothing on their resume that suggests they have the skills you need, the qualifications, and absolutely zero computer skills, you're not going to hire them just because the letter looks pretty, right? So it's always a fake debate between the style of how you move, your body language versus the substance of what you say. If you're going to communicate, you have to have both in sync. Now, you've heard people say, well, just act natural, act natural. Here's why that's horrible advice. When you are speaking, giving a presentation, whether it's a job interview, whether it's a talk to 10 clients, Maybe it's 1,000 people in your industry. Maybe it's just two people, your boss and your boss's boss. If you're a little bit uncomfortable, you're going to, in all likelihood, act natural. The natural thing to do is to act scared. When we're scared, we as human beings stiffen up. We stop moving because we're biologically programmed to want to avoid being seen. Because hundreds of thousands of years ago, if you're out in the savannah and lions and saber-toothed tigers could see you, you're at greater risk. So the logical thing to do is kind of freeze. No one will see you. But if you're doing that in a presentation, a speech, it's going to make you look nervous. It's going to make you look scared. It is not going to help you. So that's why the advice of just act naturally doesn't really help. What you need to do is act the way you do when you're in another environment, when you're comfortable, confident, and relaxed. What I have found in working with 10,000 plus people face to face around the world in 45 countries, and in working with 2 million online students from virtually every country, is that everyone, everywhere, when they're comfortable, they move. Their body moves a little, their hands move, their face moves, their eyebrows move. So what you really want when it comes to your body language is movement. Now, the way to figure this out is to practice with your cell phone. And what I would highly recommend, you'll hear me say this a lot, is if you want to be a better speaker, communicator, presenter, you need to practice what you want to say just on your cell phone, record it on video, and look at it. Chances are the first few times you do that, you're going to think, wow, that person looks a little scared, a little stiff. Now, one area where people get themselves into trouble is they see themselves move a little, or they see their hands move and they think, oh my gosh, that looks horrible. I shouldn't move my hands. That's distracting. So what a lot of people then do to correct it in their mind is they do this, or they grab a lectern, or they hold a pencil. Makes it worse. So be very careful when you are looking at yourself on video, when you're practicing and rehearsing, that you don't overcorrect and make things worse. You actually want your hands to move. That's what will make you come across more comfortable. Now, let's talk about voice. There's something that is very strange that goes on with most people everywhere in the world. When they hear their own voice coming back to them through the speaker, they instantly think, oh, wow, that's awful. That sounds horrible. That doesn't sound like me. I wouldn't want to listen to me. Wow, my voice is uniquely awful. Now I know that I need to really change my voice completely or never, ever speak. That's not the lesson you should take away. Here's what's really going on. We all hear our own voice distorted through the bones in our skull all day long. So when we hear our voice through a speaker coming back to us, it's much less distorted. So it sounds weird to us. It's not our self-image of our own voice. And because of that, it's disorienting. It feels weird. Chances are your voice is perfectly fine. Maybe it's not good enough for Hollywood movie producers to pay you $1 million to make a voiceover ad for their movie. Okay, mine's not that good either. But it's extremely rare. In fact, I've never even had a client with this problem where someone's voice is so awful, so bad, so distracting, it actually impaired their ability to communicate. People were running out of the room to avoid them. That just doesn't happen. So chances are your voice is not so beautiful and memorable and resonant that people pay you millions of dollars, but it's not going to drive people away. That's okay. You've got a voice that is perfectly fine for what you need to do. Here's the number one thing that will help you get comfortable with your voice. It is, back to what I mentioned earlier, it is practicing on video, hearing yourself. The more you get used to hearing your voice, the better off it will sound to you, the more comfortable you'll be with your own voice. Now, Let's talk about common mistakes people make. The number one mistake people make with their voice is they speak too softly. They get a little nervous, and when they speak too softly, it brings the volume down, it flattens them out, it makes them sound monotone, and it makes you sound scared. Nobody wants to buy from someone who's scared. Nobody wants to hire someone who's scared. Nobody wants to vote for someone who's scared. So that's the problem with reducing your volume. Now, it's natural. Again, people say just act natural. That's not good advice most of the time. It's not that I want you to be fake and phony, but the natural thing to do when you're out of your comfort zone is to tighten your body, tighten your vocal cords, and your volume goes down. Huge problem. It's harder for people to hear, flattens you out, makes you seem uncomfortable, nervous, and less communication takes place, and the wrong communication takes place. So the number one thing you can do with your voice is to not yell and scream, but you do want more energy than normal, a little more volume than normal. Think of it this way. If you're at a crowded, popular restaurant, and you're at a big table, say with 10 or 12 family members and friends, you maybe have an aunt, an uncle on the other side of the table whose hearing isn't quite as good as it once was, and you want to say something. You're just a little more animated. You have a little more energy in your voice, a little more range. You're not acting, but the volume is a little more. The range is a little more. There's a little more expression on your face. Your body, your hands are moving a little more. This is what you want to bring out the best in your voice. So what have we accomplished so far? I hope I've given you a sense that I am operating here in good faith. I've tried to give you some good quick tips on how to start right away by doing things like using a simple outline on a sheet of paper. We've gone over tips of how to improve your voice, how to improve body language. And what I'm not going to do is just tweak you and try to make you feel bad and insecure. I'm not going to do all these typical gimmicks in marketing where, wow, imagine how much money you've lost, millions of dollars, because you're not in my $10,000 public speaking program. I'm not going to do that. I want to continue just trying to help you, give you positive tips on how you can be a better communicator and being transparent, with the hope that some of you, could be 3%, say, okay, this guy really giving me some value, so now I want to hire him to go to the advanced level. Or I got value from him, I'm going to bring him to my company and train all of our top executives. Or I want him to come to our organization, give a keynote speech. So let me just take a minute here, very briefly, and go through the different ways people like you use someone like me. We also have monthly media training workshops for people who really want to advance their skills speaking to the media, whether they are creating their own online shows or being interviewed by the BBC, Al Jazeera, and CNN. These are intensive in-person workshops. We also have virtual day-long public speaking and media training workshops. So for people who do not want to travel or fly, this can be done virtually. We also have a monthly master communicator workshop. It's a 2-day workshop. That's where you come for the public speaking training on one day and the media training on a second day. It's back-to-back days. It's very intensive, and you really leave with a masterclass set of communication skills. Another option we have for people is in-depth live webinars, typically once a month. These are in-depth for a particular subject, whether it is speaking up in the workplace, whether it is how to be a podcast guest. It's going to be a very intensive, small group live webinar where you get personalized instruction and feedback from an instructor. So these are monthly live webinars, typically about 2 hours long, much less expensive than the in-person trainings, the live trainings, or the private trainings. We also have private media trainings. Either I come to you or someone on my team comes to you. We work with you either one-on-one or small group sessions, recording you, role-playing, simulated media interviews, playing it back again and again and again until you get to the point where I'm not your media role model, you become your own role model. It's very intensive, but it's the best way to learn very quickly. Okay, so again, let me be transparent with you. I just took a minute or so of your time to talk about different ways people interact with me when they either want to learn a lot faster than just self-learning, or they want to get to an advanced level much faster. But I want to stress, you don't have to do any of those things. You can simply continue with me right now, today, and I'm going to walk you through the very same things I do go through when I'm in a live training with someone. And you can practice these on your own. You can improve. I don't want to scare you and say, wow, if you don't call me right now, your career is going to be destroyed. You'll never get an advance. I'm not going to do that, even though that's what all the marketing gurus tell me I need to be doing to agitate you to pull out your credit card. Why am I doing this? I really believe more in the long term. I'd rather build a long-term relationship with you. I hope that you're getting value out of this and that you can be a part of what I do right here on the TJ Walker Success channel on virtually any major social media platform. Because here's what happens. I found over time that if you give value long enough, whether it's 6 months, 2 years, sometimes 10 years, people then come back to me. Maybe they start watching something I talk about when they're in college, but then they hire me to train them when they are a CEO 10 years later. Maybe someone's in middle management, they get some tips that help them through a tough job interview today. 5 years later, they hire me to be the keynote speaker at their trade association. So I try to do this in a way that's win-win for everyone, but I'm more interested in the long term, creating long-term relationships, long-term value. So that's why I'm not going to tell you, you have to act now and this offer is going to end if you don't buy in the next 20 minutes. And you're not going to get all these bonuses. There's all these gimmicks people do. And hey, I've tried them too. I just don't feel good about it. And to me, it just doesn't feel authentic. There's a lot of talk these days about being a good communicator, being successful, you need to be authentic. Well, I want to be authentic. I don't want to trick you, manipulate you, create false scarcity with all the gimmicks most people do in training videos and webinar and funnel videos. Instead, I simply want to give you value, help you, teach you things that are going to benefit your career. And then at some point, you want more, you'll know where to find me. So what are the most common mistakes people make when they're trying to present? It's not saying, It's not having hands float around awkwardly. It's not even looking down or rocking and having bad body language. The number one mistake most people make is they just convey way too many data points. They go on and on and on. They don't use enough judgment. This is why I want you to, first of all, ask yourself, what do you really want people to do? Narrow it down to one task. Hire you, vote for you, invest money in you, approve a budget. Really have that clarity. It can't just be, well, I want people to have an overview on everything I do. Nobody needs to know everything you do. If they did, they would have your job. Your job as a communicator is to think about, here's everything I know about what I do. Here's this other person or this group of people, and here's a tiny subset of what I do that they really need to know. That requires discernment. That requires judgment. And so much of what makes most people bad speakers, boring speakers, average speakers is they don't use judgment. They simply throw everything out there. So you should brainstorm on every possible message you could say to an audience, 5, 10, 15, 100, 2,000 message points if you want to. Now you need to apply scrutiny. Now you need to put your messages in priority and eliminate anything that isn't in the top 5. That's right. You should have no more than 5 messages for any speech, presentation, talk, briefing you're doing, unless you're a college professor and everyone is writing down everything you say for an exam. But in the business world, the adult world, the civic world, the professional world, people are not writing down everything you say. That's why it's essential for you to figure out what's most important. Narrow it down to just a handful of ideas. Now, why do I say this? It's because for decades, I've traveled the globe, whether I'm speaking to one person in Serbia or whether I'm speaking to 500 people at a major conference in Los Angeles. I always ask the same question. Think of the best speaker you've seen in the last year in your field, in your career, in your profession. Now, tell me every message you remember from that speaker, the best speaker. What can you think of? And we'll go around the room sometimes. And so often the response is, I don't know, TJ. Everyone in our industry is boring. I don't remember anything, they say. Okay. Sometimes people will say, oh yeah, I remember this one speaker and they'll give me one idea. Now, sometimes people say, oh, I remember this guy was really funny and he walked around. No, that's not what I want. I don't care about their humor or their movement. I want to know, what ideas did you actually remember? So sometimes it's one, occasionally two, sometimes someone will remember 3 ideas. Every 3 months, and I often ask this question several times a week, once every 3 months, someone will remember 4 ideas from the best speaker they've ever seen, maybe in their life. And then once every 6 months, someone will say, oh yeah, I remember this speaker, and they'll list 5 ideas. And it was often the best speaker they've ever seen in their life. In all the years I've asked that question, nobody has ever come up with more than 5 ideas they remember from their best speaker. I want you to think about that right now. Really think about the best speaker you've seen in your own. I don't mean a professional comedian or professional politician, but someone in your field, in your industry, where you heard them once and you remember it. Not your CEO or colleague who speaks to you every day and over time you remember a bunch, but I mean from one presentation. Pretty hard to even come up with more than 2 or 3, isn't it? Well, ask yourself this. Do you really think that the average person you speak to is so much smarter than you are? Do you really think they have a memory so much better than yours? No, they don't. So don't try to force them to do something that you're not good at, because you probably don't remember more than a handful. So that is one of the most important things you can ever do to be a better speaker. It really is a situation where less is more. Focus on just a handful of points or fewer, and you will instantly be a better communicator. It takes off all the pressure because you're not all of a sudden trying to remember all this stuff and rat-a-tat-tat and speak quickly and, oh my gosh, there's another bullet point and another slide I got to go through. You're no longer playing that game. You're playing a different game of making your ideas really come alive to your audience. Okay, so you've figured out what you want to accomplish in the speech, what you want the audience to do. You brainstorm on ideas. Now you've narrowed it down to the top 5. What do? Put it on a 3x5 card and throw it at them and walk away? Well, no, that's not going to do anything. Now you've got to breathe life into these messages. The number one way to do it is by illustrating every key point with a story. You can give examples. You can give case studies. If you're going to use PowerPoint, you can have images. But the number one way to really make any point come alive is to tell a story that involves a real person, a real problem, a real place, a conflict, real dialogue, what was said, and how it was resolved. That's the number one way to get people to remember. I wish we could just take the facts, put it on a stick, go and put it in people's heads, and they've got all the data, and we can go home. I wish we could do that. That's not how people actually absorb information. One of the advantages of stories is they can help you in times when you're nervous, because if you speak long enough, you're going to occasionally have something that takes you out of your comfort zone. I remember the most uncomfortable presentation I ever had. It was more than 30 years ago. I was on a talk show in South Florida. It was a talk radio show. And I'll never forget, I walked into the studio and the seat is really low. I'm sitting down in this little chair like a little boy. The host is looking over me sort of in a very imposing way. He asked me a question. I start to answer and he interrupts me. He says, TJ, I have more respect for a Klansman than I do for you. We were talking about politics and I set him off somehow. And I said, but now, Mr. K, what I really think, before I could say anything else, the host reaches under the table, pulls out a gun and points it at me. Now, it's talk radio in South Florida. Palm trees are around. No one can see me. He says, "Now do you see my point, Mr. Walker?" And all of a sudden, you know what came out of my mouth? Absolutely nothing. I froze. I sort of panicked. Nothing good came out of my mouth. But eventually I stammered something. The interview sort of continued. I got out of there. Now, did I let that one awful interview, and it was an awful interview, did I let that scare me away from ever going on TV shows, radio shows again? No. In fact, I went back to that radio station 2 weeks later and guest hosted for another host. Now, I still stayed away from the host who interviewed me. I still think he's crazy, but I didn't let it slow me down because I have a passion for speaking, communicating, helping other people do it. And just because it's one bad interview, no one remembers. No one else really cares. Okay, so what did I really do there? I told a story. I just had one idea I wanted to convey. I wanted you to know that, okay, your trainer, your instructor isn't perfect. He's not great all the time. This is a learned skill, and that I have a passion for communicating. I don't let one bad thing try to dissuade me from ever doing it. It's really just one idea to give you a little better sense of who I am. I told a story. This story had a character, me. It had another character, the talk show host. It had a problem. There was a gun in my face. It had emotion. I was fearful and scared. It had a setting. It was a talk radio host, Florida, palm trees. It had a resolution. I didn't get shot, and I actually went back. So is it a great story? Is it going to win a Pulitzer Prize? No, but it's a true story. And it works because I've told that story to people the first day of a training. And sometimes I bump into them 5, 10 years later. They say, "Hey, TJ, had any guns pulled on you lately?" It works because it remembers, and they remember the point that I wasn't someone just born naturally glib and articulate all the time, but that I can work through it and not let one bad presentation scare me off. So it works at that level. I would recommend that you give a lot of thought to any message you want to convey. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as someone pulling a gun on you, but you do need to make it interesting. Now, you may say, "Well, TJ, I just give weekly reports on total sales for our 282 donut shops around the country. There's nothing that dramatic." Okay. But here's the thing, not all data are equal. Some data points are more important than others. So if all of a sudden there's a huge spike in a couple of stores because it's a new product, tell people about the product. Tell people about the reaction of some of the customers. Make it come alive. Where people get confused on stories is they think they have to be a generic motivational speaker and start talking about, "There was the starfish and I looked down and there were only 2 steps instead of 4. They think they're going to have to give some cheesy, generic, motivational story. No, all you have to do is recount a real conversation about a real problem with a colleague, a customer, a prospect, a fellow student, where you were and how it was resolved. And make sure it's something that would be interesting and relevant to the audience. If you do that, you'll be in great shape. Here's the thing. You can say, "Well, TJ, I'm not a natural born storyteller." Wrong. All human beings tell stories all the time. If it's Monday morning and you go into work or you go to class and someone says, "How was your weekend?" You don't say, "Well, at 6:01, I woke up Saturday morning. At 6:02, I got coffee. At 6:03, I went to the bathroom." No. And yet that's how so many people give speeches and boring PowerPoint presentations, is this linear way of fact after fact. If someone said, "How's your weekend?" you're likely to talk about the most interesting thing, good or bad, that happened. "Oh my God, I was going to Miami and I thought I could get there in an hour and I-95 shut down. It was an absolute parking lot. We just sat there in the car and didn't move for 20 minutes. It was excruciating. And my family's yelling at me and I'm yelling at them." What did I just do there? I told a story. Is it an interesting story? No, but it had the story elements. It might be perfectly appropriate if I just bumped into a friend Monday morning at Starbucks, because I told a story involved characters, place, setting, problem, emotion, resolution. That's all a story is. So you already tell stories. You've got to figure out when you're communicating the right story that is relevant to your audience. But if you say, well, TJ, I can't think of any story at all about this message, then you got to ask yourself, is this really an important message? Do you really have to spend time with this audience talking about this message if you've never talked to anyone in real life about it? If it's never come up anywhere, if there's never been a problem related to this, is it truly a message that is so important that you need to take people's time? Typically, the answer is no. Remember, you're being judged not by how many facts come out of your mouth, but by how many facts go in people's brains and are remembered. If people don't remember what you're saying, you haven't accomplished anything. I could speak to you right now in Swahili, but if you don't understand Swahili, I don't get any credit for speaking Swahili because I haven't helped you in any way whatsoever. If you are just giving people fact after fact after fact, and you're doing it in a way where they can't remember it, you might as well be speaking a foreign language to them. Nothing good is actually happening. Okay, let's talk about PowerPoint now. I love PowerPoint. PowerPoint is great. Some of my best friends are PowerPoint, but let's be real. The problem with 99% of PowerPoints is they're so boring, they put people to sleep. It's not the fault of the PowerPoint. It's how we use it. There's a lot of boring television these days. You can go to channel 133 on cable, and all it does is list the school lunches from last week. That's boring. But if you love watching World Cup soccer and you can't be at the soccer game, watching World Cup soccer on your television is great TV. So the problem is not the medium. Television isn't boring or interesting. It's what you put on TV. PowerPoint is not boring or interesting. It's what you put on PowerPoint. The number one problem most people have with their PowerPoint is they're just putting bullet points in text. They're using it as the poor person's teleprompter. Well, I've got an amazing high-tech invention that is a much better way for you to store data so you remember what to say. You won't have to use the PowerPoint slide, projecting it in front of everyone to remind you of what to say. I've got an invention. It's very sophisticated. It's very expensive. So get your credit card out and your checkbook out. Here's the invention that keeps me from never, ever, ever forgetting what to say when I'm giving a presentation. It's called a 1-cent sheet of paper. Everything I'm saying to you during our session here, it's because I've got a little reminder right here. It's a single sheet of paper, and it costs you nothing, or you probably already have a sheet of paper around the house, so you don't have to spend money on me or anyone else. Use a sheet of paper. The beauty of paper is nobody has to see it. Because this is one sheet of paper, other than to make my point, I normally would never pick it up. You would be under the illusion that I'm just speaking to you for an hour because you're not going to see me touch the paper. So if you're going to use PowerPoint, use it the way that Steve Jobs did. For example, they call theirs Keynote at Apple, but it's the same thing. Computer-driven slides projected during a presentation. Put an image up. When he wanted to convey what he was creating for an iPhone, he said, well, you know what this is? And he had a cell phone. He says, you know what this was? An iPod. What are we doing here today? And he merged the two images together for the iPhone. That's many, many, many years ago, but I can still remember it. Chances are you can too. And yet a PowerPoint presentation I might have seen yesterday or that you might have seen this morning is instantly forgotten because words are abstractions. The human memory can understand abstractions. It doesn't remember abstractions. What humans remember are really two things, images and stories. That's why I just spent a lot of time telling you, please tell stories for all your main points. And if you're going to use PowerPoint, one image per slide. And I don't mean an image of a triangle with 3 words on it. That's cheating. It's still word-based. Now, if you want to convey a lot of words to people, you want to give people words, by all means, give them words, but email it to people. Give them a handout. Give them a URL to go to. But do not stand up in front of people and just read a whole bunch of words. I like words. I've written books. In fact, I've written half a dozen books, but I'm not going to get up here today and just start reading chapter after chapter, sentence after chapter for a book. It's a good book to read, but that's not the way you actually convey information to people when you are speaking to them. We also have live in-person presentation skills workshop. Either I come to you or someone from my team comes to you. We work very intently, one-on-one or in a small group setting. You get on camera, not 1 or 2 or 3 times, but typically 10 or 15 times in a day. The ultimate goal is for you to get to the point where I'm not your role model. No one else is your role model but you. You're looking at a video of yourself speaking, saying, wow, I wish I could be that good all the time. I would be a superstar in my industry. That is the result of the in-person private trainings. Again, these are one-on-one trainings. These can be small group trainings. Everything I'm talking about is listed in detail on the page that you're watching this on right now, or in the description of this video that you're watching right now. So you can click to find more information there. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the single most important thing you can do to become a great communicator. It's easy, it costs nothing, but emotionally it's the hardest thing to do. And I am sympathetic to that. This is frankly why a lot of people, and a subset of people watching today, maybe even you, call me up or come to one of my workshops or hire me for private training or engage with me in a specific way because you don't want to do this on your own. I'm talking about rehearsal. The single easiest way to go from an average communicator or below average communicator is to rehearse your presentation and just use a cell phone or a webcam. You want to record your presentation, look at it. Oh, TJ, I don't want to do that. I don't like my face. I don't like my voice. I get it. No one else cares. No one cares that you don't like your voice or some aspect of your body. They just don't, because if you're speaking, they have to watch you. They have to listen to you. They just want some idea that's interesting and useful to them. Imagine if you're my high school English teacher and you assign me an essay and I just say, well, I'm not going to write it out. I'm going to dictate it and I'll just email you the audio file. Well, TJ, why are you going to do that? It's a written essay. I want you to write it, edit it, make sure the punctuation, grammar is great. Oh, but I don't like to look at my own writing. It makes me uncomfortable. So I'm just going to dictate it and send it to you. If you're my teacher, you'd probably say, I don't care what you want. You've got to write something and you've got to polish it up to make it look good. Otherwise, you get an F. I hope that's what you'd say. Well, that's essentially what's going on with so many of us with our presentations. We may spend hours and hours and hours, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, thinking of ideas, writing a speech, writing PowerPoint, rewriting PowerPoint, editing the PowerPoint, but we never actually rehearse. So the first time we ever give it is in front of the live audience. And it's also the last time, which means our first draft is our rough draft and it's our final draft. So there's no way of improving it. If you really want to go from average, below average to great, do this one thing. I promise you, it will make you a dramatically better speaker. Here's the reaction most people get when they watch a video of their speech. I see it every month, every week, sometimes every day in a week. People turn to me after watching their own presentation and say, oh God, that was awful. That was really boring. I wouldn't want to watch that. What do you think, TJ? And then I have to say to them, well, look, you seem like a pretty smart person. If you think it was really boring, guess what? it was, so will your audience think that. So the answer is not to never look at your rehearsal. The answer is to redo the speech until you find it interesting. That is the solution. Not just saying, well, this is the speech we've worked on and it's been signed off and it's been approved and everyone's approved it, so it's too late to change. You can't have that attitude. Your audience doesn't care. You are not ever ready to give a speech until you have rehearsed on video and to the point where you like it and say, that's exactly how I want to come across. That's the best I can do. I think that's going to work on my audience. There's nothing I'm saying to you today that I haven't said before on video and watched it. I assure you. Doesn't mean you're going to love every second I say, but it does give me the confidence in knowing this is what I want to say. This is how I want to say it.